Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. Just got back from the Monarca down in Mexico, and all fired up about flying. We had a great week of racing down there, as we always do, so that was a blast. And I don't have any housekeeping. That's about it. 2022 is off to a good start, and I hope it is for all of you as well. And I'm really excited to bring you a bunch of great content this year. I've been recording like mad, as I've said on the last couple, so got a whole bunch of shows laid out for you over the next few months, and I hope you enjoy them. Today's show is with Johanna Hamne from Sweden, currently living in Finland, and she and her significant other both are big racers, and they travel a lot, and they're both on the World Cup scene. And she had a really exciting year this last year. She got pregnant and ended up breaking the Nordic FAI record when she was 8 months pregnant. So as you can imagine, that certainly brought some attention to her on the socials, both good and bad. And so we talk about that. We should talk about being in a relationship with somebody else who flies really hard and chases it really hard. We talk about risk, how risk changes or not when you have a child. That was pretty interesting to me, as I've just been going through that myself. And a lot of other really cool things. I've run into Johanna in a lot of places around the world, usually at World Cups and stuff, and the British. And she's always got a great big warm smile, and she's got a great attitude. And I love how she approaches this sport. I think you will as well. Enjoy this talk. Johanna, it's really good to have you on the Mayhem, see your smiling face here, and talk all things flying in Finland and babies. And you've had a big year, and it's been kind of a weird year for everybody, but you've been stomping it. So excited to have you on the show. Hi.
Hi, excited to be here.
Thanks for taking the time. We were just chatting it up before we started recording, and you were telling me about where you are. I had to look it up on Google Maps. You know, we've all got a little bit of a fascination with Finland after watching Juni just send it this year. And he had that huge record, well, the 2 record flights, and topped it off with that 500 plus. But right? It was 500 plus, wasn't it? The second one?
It was 500 plus, yeah. And I think many pilots have gotten their eyes up for Finland. But unfortunately, it might not be so weather reliable as Brazil if you're searching for big distances.
Sure. Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So you're down in the Southwest, and when I just pulled it up on Google Maps, you know, one of the things I've been impressed with when I've looked at his flight is just the water. Tell me a little bit about Finland. You guys are surrounded by water, but then the whole country is tons of lakes. There's a lot of water. I don't really understand how it works.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much, it's called the land of the 1,000 lakes, which is probably a bit of an understatement because there is plenty of them. And I would say that most of the flying is probably good thanks to it as well, because we have so much contrast. It may be very flat country, but since it's fields and forests and lakes and swamps, we get quite good thermal triggers. And possibly that is why. And also, of course, it's quite safe and nice when it's flat everywhere.
Yeah, you don't have turbulence to deal with, I guess.
Exactly. There is pretty much nothing. And of course, I mean, valley winds doesn't really exist, only on a very minor scale. And weather is predictable. And since we mainly do towing, then it enables you to take off in quite strong wind and just drift with it. So, of course, that's the main reason why we have these big distances.
And so it's all flat. How far above sea level is Finland? What's the average?
I would say the average is maybe around 100 meters above sea level.
So really flat.
It is really flat, for sure.
And
if you go way up north, then you have some hills.
Okay.
But then you're bordering to Norway.
Okay. And it seems like the big ones are north to south, which is kind of the way the country is oriented. You were in the sky with him, but you chose a different launch on the 400 day or the other one?
Yeah, it was a 400 day. So pretty much the north to south flights. Then we have this cold, dry air coming in from Russia, which is really good for thermals. And I had chosen a launch a bit closer to the sea and also a bit further south. But unfortunately, it seemed like it had it had rained quite a bit in that area, which we had not noticed. And we all flew very fast, 50 kilometers, and Joni flew 400. And I think Pekka Rautaskoski was also flying 400, landing close to backward. So definitely the wind speed was there, but the thermals were not really taking you anywhere.
And what's the season there? When for those listening who have been watching these big flights go down, when should we show up and bother you guys to take us flying?
You should, in that case, come visiting in end of May, beginning of June. The thermal season basically starts in end of April, mid-end of April, and ends around August. And of course, possibilities every now and again after that and before that, but very, very rarely.
And how tall do you get? And the pictures I've seen of the flying, there's usually pretty good cloud streets. Are you flying blue days too, or is there just too much water and there's always clouds?
Yeah, actually, I mean, for example, my big flight, that was a blue day. And the blue days are actually, I like them personally. I know plenty of people that does not like dry thermals, but for me, it's a good thing. And I would say we are easily flying 2,000, 2,500 meter base.
Jeez, and of course, really? So you're almost 10,000 feet off the ground. That's pretty good. It gives you some room to work.
It does, but then again, it's often you can fly still good cross country being lower as well. I remember that I have had a flight where I never got more than, was it 1,200 meters or something, and I still flew 100K.
Wow. So. And, again, I'm just going off pictures. I've never flown there. That part of the world, I've been to Norway. I was up there for the Winter Olympics, whenever that was, 94. This is dating me a bit.
Lillehammer.
Yeah, Lillehammer. And Hamara is beautiful. Gosh, gorgeous up there. And
it is.
A little bit in Sweden, but I've never done any flying. It looks awesome. But from the pictures, it's like you said, it's flat, so you can handle a lot of wind, but it also doesn't. I mean, are there plenty of places to land? It looks pretty dense. A lot of water and a lot of forest.
Yeah, I mean, definitely these big flights that Joni and Pekka has been doing in a bit more eastern side of Finland. Then you have more forest, like in this western area. That's quite. You have to actually search to find a place where it's not landable. There's fields everywhere, which makes it, of course, very safe and nice to fly.
And you were showing me this. I mean, what are the sticky parts? What are the tough parts about flying where you are? It sounds just idyllic. You were sharing with me this map that another pilot created called Avia Maps. And those of you listening, I'll have this link on the show notes because this is terrific. It shows all the airspace and NOTAMs and everything.
Yes, it's actually a huge benefit as well to have this real updated information about everything and not having to search from different sources to know what is not allowed to fly into and so on. And also it contains a lot of different information like opening hours of the towers and such. And I mean, in general, we are operating from airfields, which means that we are flying with aviation radio to be able to communicate with the other traffic.
So are you all ham operators? You'll
yes.
have your ham license? Okay.
Yeah.
So you carry an airband radio with you when you fly?
Yeah.
Is that a requirement? Is that a regulation flying in Finland?
It's not a regulation, but I think it is recommended. And at least, I mean, if you're flying somewhere where there's not other traffic, then of course it's not needed. But if you're operating from an airfield, then you have to be able to communicate with the others. Or if you have someone that you're flying with that does have one.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
So well, I mean, I would say
we should all have them anyway. We should all have our ham licenses and be flying with them anyway. But
yeah, that's true. But how is it? At least in Sweden, I know there's some hiccups regarding it in the regulations that somehow the radio installation have to be approved somehow, which is of course not really possible on a paraglider.
Right. And are you talking to the cockpits a lot? Is there a lot of air traffic in Finland? Is a lot of planes flying around and you're, hey, we're flying, just heads up?
Yeah, there is quite a bit of traffic. There's hobby aviation traffic. There's plenty of sailplanes and gyros and other just private small planes, and of course we are communicating with them. But it's most often you're just approaching an airfield, informing that you're in the area, see if someone is there, continuing. But it also opens up the possibility to file a flight plan and fly through control airspace if they allow you in.
Oh, okay. Wow, interesting. Yeah, we don't fly with a lot of airspace here, so we're all kind of novices when it comes to that. Whenever I'm in the X House, that's one of my biggest fears. And they used to not care unless it was the really serious ones, the CTRs and stuff. And now it's the national parks, and it's gotten really complicated.
Everywhere.
It's gotten really complicated to just make a course, a race course that avoids most of it. So I feel for the organizers as well. It's gotten really tricky, and it always gets a few athletes. It always gets a few, but it's good that you can fly there and learn it.
Yeah, and of course, especially down on the continent, it's just so much tighter in between the big airports as well. So no wonder.
Yeah.
Here it's a small country. We have quite many airports as well, but they are having quite limited amount of traffic at least. So plenty of them are, for example, only open in the weeks and not in the weekends.
So in our, the previous years, I've been doing comps a little longer than you have, but, we see each other at comps all the time. And I know you're planning on going down to Roll de Neo this year. For some reason, I just never connected that you were doing these big flights in the flats of Flint. Do you consider yourself a flatland pilot or a mountain pilot or both?
Oh, very good question. Maybe I'm more of a flatland pilot nowadays, actually. I do enjoy it a lot, at least. It's very calm.
Yeah.
Flying there.
Yeah, it's nice not to deal with turbulence and lee, isn't it?
Exactly. It's not bad. No, and maybe I've realized as well that I'm not as willing nowadays to just be very, very close to the ridges and the mountains. So I have gotten maybe a healthy respect for it.
Is that because of an incident, or is that because of the new little addition to your family?
I think that is actually the addition to the family more than an incident.
Interesting. Okay, so this is a good segue. You just mentioned your record. Was this the record you had when you were 8 months pregnant?
Correct. Yes.
Wicked. Let's talk about that. That's going to raise some eyebrows here.
Well, I was not expecting it either. I can assure you that. So
the record or the baby?
The record. The baby was pretty expected by that point.
At 8 months, I guess it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I had a hunch. Yeah, well, pretty much it was. As you maybe know, my partner is also a competition pilot, so he had the plan of declaring the Nordic record triangle that day. And I was kind of, had pretty much settled that I will not be doing that big flights for the rest of the season because of, well, obviously what was coming. And
this is your first
big triangle, yes.
No, your first baby.
First baby as well, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so pretty much I was thinking that, flying triangle, it's a perfect day for it. And you're always in quite reachable distance to go back to the airfield anyway. So I can tag along. I will most likely not manage it around, but it's nice to have a plan. So that was pretty much it. And I probably had one of the worst launches of my career, actually. We had 90-degree side wind because there was a lot of activity on the airfield. So quite terrible launch. I did lose my winter glove in the launch. So I only had summer gloves, which is less than optimal in Nordic
Finland.
spring.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, and let's see. First leg, it was quite slow, like the first leg always is on a triangle. And we ended up low after 30K about. And it was me and you flying together. And he landed. And I somehow managed to drag myself up from 100 meters. And then I just thought to myself, oh, dear God, it's so far to go. Because then it's like plus 120k that is written on the instrument, and that alone, not super motivated.
Right. There must have been thoughts going through your head. Is this what I should be doing or not? Or was there?
Yeah, it was pretty much like, but it was supposed to be his flight, not mine. I was not supposed to set this.
Right.
It was not quite my plan, but it is a good day, so I will continue. Let's see. And I mean, the entire course line was along roads, super safe flying. I mean, I can land whenever, doesn't matter. So I slowly continued. So I reached the first turn point, and then finally the conditions really started being like booming. And unfortunately, by then I was on a section of the track that has a roof, so it was flight level 65.
Okay.
So I couldn't top off the thermals either.
Oh man.
So it's a bit of a Murphy's law, and mental wise, it's every 10k is a bit of a celebration, and all of a sudden it's not 3 digits anymore on the instrument, and okay, that's a goal in itself. Now it starts to feel a bit more reachable, and somehow it just slowly got myself around.
Wow. And
Yeah, no single cloud.
really, and completely blue. There's no cloud. Wow, you like the blue days. Well, that's really interesting. So you said you 160 FAI, and that's the Nordic record. Is that not knocking it? That's an awesome FAI, but is it just hard to do triangles in the Nordic countries because they're long and skinny?
Yeah, pretty much. And of course, it's in Finland, it's flatland, which means a completely different story. You're not really getting any of the benefits of it. For example, mountainside, to just be soaring off, going like a highway of it. So it's not possible to fly them like you fly them in down in the Alps, for example. And not quite sure why it hasn't been flown a big triangle in Norway, but they do have quite unstable weather. When it's epic, it's amazing, but quite often they have a lot of wind. So it might be why it's not so easy flying triangles there.
Yeah.
It's at least my theory.
And where do you spend most of your time flying? Are you mostly at home year round, or are you spending a lot of time on the road and getting hours down the Alps?
No, we're plenty at home. And
Okay.
then just going for competitions. That's
Okay.
pretty much how it goes, I would say.
When did you start flying comps?
XC or Acro?
Oh, okay. I didn't know you flew Acro comps.
All right. Yeah, I did my first Acro competition in 2014, and I did my first cross-country competition in 2016.
Oh, wow. Were you doing any Acro practice with the little one on board?
Not practice, but just I have pretty much put the Acro on the shelf. I'm just flying, goofing around over the airfield, what I can do blindfolded. So yes, I did some, but not I don't think a real Acro pilot would call that Acro nowadays, like doing SAT and the wingovers and some loops and stuff. It's barely regarded as Acro nowadays.
And how old is your little one now? Boy or girl?
It's a girl. She's now turning 1.5.
Oh, okay.
So
has she been tandem flying with you?
No, only in the belly.
Only in the belly. I love it. I love it. We took Fallon on a tandem, and I wasn't the pilot. I was just flying around. Todd Wieglin, who's a really good Acro pilot and really good tandem pilot, and when she was 13 months, and
really?
and he did a bunch of, and I said, hey, you got to do with her what you do with all your normal clients. So I want to see some helis, and so he did a bunch of helis, and I was flying around her, and I took video of the whole thing, and I sent it to my mom, so her grandmother. And my mom didn't talk to me for a week. She was so pissed off. She couldn't believe it. And I said, no, it's safer than driving a car. It's fine.
Hey, it's nice to hear that someone is worse than me, at least.
Yeah, so I applaud your decision making. But, let's talk about that, though. Did you get some funny looks? Was this all okay in Finnish culture, or in our flying community, or were people kind of, whoa, what are you thinking?
I think that yes, there was some talk, mostly behind the back, and in flying community wise, mostly it was positive opinions, especially from the females around. I have gotten some like interesting comments that has maybe been not so thought through before they have jumped out of the mouth from the persons delivering them. But and of course, it's I can understand them, because everyone is having their own like background in terms of experience.
Sure.
What I would say they can or should not be doing in general. And then on top of that, of course, you should not be doing something completely new when you're pregnant. That kind of says itself, I would say.
Do you feel like it affected anything, from a positive side? Do you feel like your little girl is maybe a little more less risk averse than maybe some babies would be? Or, I mean, I don't know. Can you tell any difference that, she came out and was just a little, a crazy person, just loved heights or whatever? I don't know, something different.
I don't know. I think she is maybe a bit more liking things that goes fast and a bit more action things than maybe others. But I have no idea if it's related to flying or genetics or whatever is related to.
Your partner's a comp pilot. Is he Finnish as well?
He's Finnish. I'm Swedish, by the way. So
that's what I thought. Okay, so you guys met on the comp scene or not? How did you guys meet, and how did that all come together?
Well, actually, we met. I was in Finland for a work trip, and I brought my paragliding gear with me to see if it was possible to fly in Finland. And then after that, we kind of started dating after meeting each other in Colombia. After that.
Oh wow! Okay. And what does he think? What does he think about you flying when you're pregnant? Is he supportive? Is he a little reticent? How's that all?
No, he's been very, very supportive. But then again, that's kind of the thing, because we were all already, quite mature pilots by the time that we met. Yeah. So I had the Acro background, he had cross-country background, and we have sort of been teaching each other maybe a bit from the backgrounds that we have. So he started flying a bit of Acro after that, and I went into cross country more and more.
Interesting. So your initial push was Acro when you first got into flying.
Yeah. I started, like everyone, more or less, with an SIV, and realized, hey, it's super fun stalling the glider. I want to do this more. And I think the problematic for me was that I never properly got the training time in, because both combining flying hobby with a career and everything, and I was living in Norway at that point, and it just felt like the weather was not quite there. You got very few flying days in general. The Acro training never got to a level where it should be, and it's all about being like fresh in Acro. You need to get the training time in. So I did the Worlds in Acro, mostly just because it was wanted to get more female, so we could actually have a female category in the Worlds in 16, which we did. So we did. I think that was the only time there has been a female world champion in Acro, because both the other times it has been too few.
Right. We couldn't do
have
it.
Great fun down there.
Yeah.
And but after that, it actually opened this great Acro spot in Norway, close to where I was living. Gondola up to 1,000 meters straight out over water. But I was the only one there. So I tried to motivate myself to train. And I just, if you're alone, your motivation runs out, I would say.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happened with me. But now it's a booming Acro community there. Yeah, but I was a bit too early.
Right. And will you get back into Acro, or you said some parts of? Let's talk about your risk tolerance now. Now that you've had your little girl, what have you noticed that's shifted, if anything?
I would say in terms of the first competition I did after getting her, it was in Slovenia this summer, and I noticed that I'm not as keen on flying very close to the ridges and the mountainsides, for example. But it's definitely possible to still keep up by just choosing slightly different lines, slightly more optimized lines, and flying them a bit differently. So it in the end result, it doesn't make that big difference, at least in normal category 2 competitions. Of course, if you go to a PWC, then I would say you're going to be left behind. But on this level, it's still okay. Otherwise, I think I've been quite aware of the risks my entire flying career, and I'm just not so keen on taking them. I had some injuries in the past, and I think it taught me a thing or two. So,
can we dive into some of those, or one of those, or
what? Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
young and stupid. More.
Yeah, because you're so old now.
Exactly. No, that was back in 2014, and I managed to spin my cross-country glider when I was out flying really low. So I ended up doing a quite controlled crash and broke my ankle.
Okay.
But 2 months on crutches, it still is a lot of time to think and quite frustrating for a person that is normally quite active. And then the year after in an Acro competition, then sometimes you're getting this, hot head that, damn, this has gone so well that I feel a bit invincible. And I got that feeling for the landing. And this was because we were supposed to do 2 runs this day in the competition. So the landing was on a raft on the ground.
Oh.
And still, I thought I would do a spin landing, which I'm not very good at doing. So I came in a bit hot, a bit high, a bit fast, and I managed to break my ACL and meniscus on the right knee.
Ow. Yeah. Shoot. Okay.
So I had those 2, and it taught me that, you know what, being injured, it's not that fun. Let's remember this, step back, think about what we're doing. And I find it was quite good timing, because I was enough pilot to know what I was doing. I got actually properly injured enough to remember it.
Yeah.
And I haven't gotten injured since.
A moderately inexpensive mistake, I would call that one.
Exactly.
You need the mistakes to learn, but you paid enough of a price that it really set in. Okay, don't do that again. Ding dong.
Exactly. So
right.
I think it was a valuable lesson, definitely. And enough of a lesson, and maybe in the right timing as well.
Yeah. Tell me about your, I don't mean personal side of it, but your relationship. How does that work with flying? You both being pilots, because a lot of the people I interview, a really common theme on the show, and I think just in life with all of us, is how to balance this, how to balance what we do with life, because it is quite a time suck. Chasing it takes a lot of time and money sometimes if you're doing a lot of traveling, but it's it's quite hard to find for a lot of people, I think, to find the balance. Certainly is for me, especially with family. How does that work when you have a partner who flies? Does that make it a lot easier? Maybe it makes it harder. I don't know.
I would say it does make it a lot easier, because you have the same priorities. So it's, of course, I can imagine, I don't know, do you have a non-flying partner?
Oh, very much so. I've taken her for a tandem, and 3 minutes into the flight, she's looking back at me talking about, what are we going to do on Friday night? Honey, you're not interested in this whatsoever, are you? No, I'm not. Doesn't have any interest. She thinks the Red Bull X Alps is, that's kind of nice. Must be interesting for you.
Interesting little walk in the park, yes.
Yeah.
No, I think it's making, priority-wise, it's making it so much easier. I mean, for an example, we have pretty much whenever cross-country season is on in Finland, we do not make any other plans.
Perfect.
So it's great. Because if the conditions are allowing for flying cross-country, then we want to do that. And of course, we are sharing the days. But anyway,
I was going to say, so do one of you fly now and the other one looks after your daughter, or do you get a babysitter?
No, it's we are switching days, so we are just dividing it. And of course, it's maybe in the end slightly less flying. But then again, we are also like committing to going even the days that maybe is not looking so promising. And it has turned out that most of the times it's actually working better than predicted those days as well.
Yeah.
And also trying to help each other because we both have quite free work. So if one has possibility to go flying in the week, then either joining to assist towing, or at least being the caretaker of the kid for that day.
Right.
So like helping each other.
So what will you do? Because you're doing the World Cup and the Open, the British Open, right? In Roldo,
Yeah,
you doing
let's
both?
see. At least the British Open. I don't know if I'm getting selected for the PWC actually.
Yeah, it's pretty high level this year, isn't it? I mean, everybody's just dying to go to a comp, after this last year and a half of
I think people
comps.
are quite motivated, yeah.
Yes, very motivated. Well, so, but if you do both, little one just comes with you guys. How are you going to handle that?
No, you is staying at home. No, he's staying at home. He went to Argentina for the Worlds.
Aha! You guys get to trade off.
Yes.
Nice. Okay. Oh, cool. That makes sense.
It does, doesn't it?
And if you had a long break away from your daughter, will this be the first big break you've had, or have you done this before?
Well, I did go to Slovenia by myself, so that was about 10 days when she was around 1. So that was the first long break, and that was like okay, both for her and for me.
You're quite casual, aren't you? I'm trying to. Yeah, it was really dramatic and hard and brutal. I couldn't even talk to her on the phone. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
That was not so bad.
That's great.
But she's a pretty chilled out kid as well, so it's kind of nice.
So she's happy with dad, and that's all fine.
Mm.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Boy, if you had given me Fallon for 10 days when she was 1, I would have lost my shit. That was, I think in total now she's 4.5. I've maybe had her just me, maybe 6 days total. She needs mom. Yeah.
She seems to be quite easygoing kid, so.
That's great.
Knock on wood.
Was this is way too personal, but was this a planned pregnancy? You had this on the map? You guys talked about this, or was this, whoa, here we go?
It was quite planned.
Okay.
We didn't really have any like big comps coming up that we wanted to go the year after. So I said, let's see if it's.
Let's see what planning it around the comps. I love it. You guys are awesome. That's fantastic. Okay, we got a pretty open schedule. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
Yeah. And then, of course, like COVID kind of happened, but that was not really part of the plan.
Right. And
so that kind of halted things anyways.
Again, way too personal a question, but will you have more kids?
Well, let's see. I have no idea. Nothing planned, at least.
Yeah. Okay. If you don't mind, I'd love to talk about, you said that, some of the kind of comments that came out of people's mouths that maybe weren't really well thought out in advance. You said it seemed the look on your face was the more troubling ones came from other females. What was that about?
No. It was not from other females. Okay, we maybe did get some comments, but then it was from non-flying flying related ones in that case.
Non-flying?
That had some pretty strong opinions regarding it. And
because their perception of the danger and that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. And no, otherwise it just got some minor comments from guys actually, like, oh, but how can you be flying Enso while being pregnant? Like, well, to be honest, I did not ended up being a worse pilot just because being pregnant. But I mean, I did step down as well, but that was early in the pregnancy. So
yeah, I mean, you've got more ballast.
Exactly.
Flies it better.
So that's why but because I had when I got pregnant, I had pretty much 3 different competition gliders and sold one of them. So I stepped down actually to the Sino, which also had like half a size higher weight span. So
Okay.
which
Makes
just
sense.
meant that, I mean, I just had to take less and less ballast along the
Yeah.
pregnancy, and then
You just get on the scale each time when you go, okay, a little bit, don't need quite as much water today. Did flying ever, did it, when you did the FAI, 160, that took some hours.
that was
Did you
about
notice any?
8 hours.
Yeah, wow. Did it take any, did you notice any difference, any kind of weird alien world stuff when we call that alien. I always think of, really long flights, you get on the ground and you feel really strange, just kind of, man, I feel like an alien in this on the ground now. Was any different? Did you notice any difference between how you normally felt and when you're pregnant?
Not really, no. I was actually surprised. I had expected I would feel a bit different, but no, it was more of a mental struggle that I wasn't alone,
Okay.
and it was especially the last leg was super super slow.
Ah,
But because I had gotten like this last leg, I had gotten a slight tailwind, but it was very late already. So I mean the thermals were crazy slow. So the progress was like next to nil, and when you have already been in the air for about 6 hours, you're just you're struggling with the
yeah,
motivation,
right.
and still is like, but it's so reachable by now.
Yeah, you got to
It's
do it.
so close that
Yeah.
it's just like try to stay in it. And but I mean the thermals were like 0.5 1 meter per second, so the progress
Slow
is
going.
slow. Mm.
Yeah, slow going. Were you getting encouraging? Were you in radio contact with your partner on the ground? Was he kind of, yeah, I get it, or were you
Yeah,
solo? Were
I
you on
think
your
he was
own?
actually sending me some messages on the phone like, "You're doing great. Just keep on fighting," and stuff like that. So
Wow.
it was really nice, and it was needed as well.
Yeah. Do you both help each other out quite a bit with flying? I'm wondering. There's always that coaching dynamic between a couple that can be really tough, so if there was a
Mm,
day back in the day when I was kayaking, when I would teach
mm,
a girlfriend how to kayak, it very rarely went very well. It was often better to put them in a school, and because there's the personal side of things. Do you guys battle with that at all, or is that something, or do you even do it at all? Do you coach each other?
we do coach each other, and I think I have the problem like strategically in competitions that I'm the hothead, and I take
Ah,
very. We used to describe my flying style as high risk, low reward,
okay.
because I tend to be the one getting all the competition horns growing out, and then I'm just full barring it from the starts way too low, and in general doing strategically stupid things in competitions.
No
Whereas
discipline.
I have no, exactly. Whereas I have a partner who is very calm and composed and thinks things through a lot more.
Mm.
So I'm
So
getting
he's
good
good at
tips.
he gives you tips about that, and it work. It doesn't, you don't take that in a, oh, I don't know, because people can,
Not
when
in a bad
it's a
way, no.
relation, not in a bad way. Oh, that's good.
No. Yeah, but I know myself well enough that I know that I am doing quite stupid things in competitions
Hmm.
that I should not be doing.
What do you think? If obviously this hasn't happened, it's hard to imagine something that may never happen. But what if one of you stopped flying for whatever reason? You get an accident, or you
Mm,
get scared, or just whatever. It just doesn't have the zing that it once did, and you're not as interested in it, and the other person really is.
mm.
How would that play out? Do you think, or how would you?
I think it would still be like quite. It would still work out. I mean, that's pretty much how we are living, in winter time, for example,
Sure.
when the season is off.
Mm, just do
We're
your
pretty
thing.
much exactly. We're pretty much not flying at all from October to if we're going to Colombia or some winter competition. But in general, we have a quite active lifestyle, so I think that will still be the same.
How do you tune yourself up for something like Roldo when you've had a long break?
That's a very good question, because it's always that you are a bit rusty when you're getting there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sub-zero and full of snow here. You have no way to sort of warm up. But it's this mental preparation instead of maybe watching some movies and track logs and that type of things, and trimming the glider and then having a few days before the comp to kind of get the rust off.
You try to arrive a few days before the practice day and get some hours.
But I think it's kind of inevitable. You can't really solve it any other way. Fortunately, Rolda is, I mean, it's not the strongest place on Earth.
No.
And you can always escape to the flats and sort of calm down for a while. So that's one of the beauties with the place.
Yeah, it is very special.
It has everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very special. What are your goals this next season?
I have my eyes set on the declared European record cross country.
Okay.
But let's see, because that was the one that I was trying to do, that very fast 50K day.
Yeah,
that didn't very much not happen. So I would say that is maybe the aim for this year, and maybe trying to get one more Nordic record would be fun as well.
Where are the Nordics this year?
The Nordics next year is not it's not determined yet.
Okay.
It will be determined in the next few weeks, I think.
I always enjoy that. I had a blast in Macedonia with you guys. I'd love to keep coming to those.
You are welcome to join again. It was fun. We had a great Nordics in Pedro Bernard now in September.
It looked like it. I watched that. That looked fantastic.
We had super tasks and like strong conditions, high. It was fun racing.
I want to dive back in just briefly into the risk side of things. Now that you've got the little one, the two accidents you mentioned, I wouldn't think either of those had any kind of fear involved with them. Maybe the spin, but I'm wondering if either of those or other ones you've had have ever left you with a bit of a fear scar, and just kind of it made you fly differently after that.
Not really. The only one that like a sort of event in the air that I've had that has left any permanent, I would say I had a like proper cascade with the Acro glider in Öle Denise in 2015, and I think that took some time to recover from. I was, cascading for. I did not go in, no, but I was. There was plenty of falling involved and slack lines and shooting here and there, and not being right timed with the glider at any point. So I think that took some time to recover, but I learned so much from it as well.
So it wasn't totally ahead of you. You understood, you saw it all. People talk about that when they're, when it's kind of above their level. I don't know what happened. It sounds like you really did.
Yeah, I mean, it was still on. It was just slightly above my level for not handling it correctly, but I understood what was going on. Which, gotcha. For that, I mean, in that essence, it was a very good learning experience. I did not enjoy it even a bit at that point, but I mean, afterwards you learn from it for sure.
Yeah.
But with a cross country glider, apart from my crash, I haven't really had any big events, I can't say. But then again, the Acro background is still giving some. I have, of course, still gotten collapses and proper blowouts with a comp glider, but it has still been manageable.
I wonder, what would you say advice-wise for SIV, for budding XC pilots? With your Acro background, how much is enough? How much should we shoot for? What's the goal there?
That's a very good question. I've been thinking myself as well, like this going to an SIV with a comp glider, for example, because that's something I have never done. I have done SIV like early in my career, and then after that, well, you get a bit of a free training through various acro maneuvers you're trying to learn. So I can't really say. I think it's very valuable, and it can also, if you are inexperienced, it can also be scaring people, which is not good either. So of course it depends on at what point you're planning on taking it, and kind of in what purpose as well. Have you done a SIV on a comp glider?
No, I've done. I did a lot of stalls on my X-Alps glider this year. I did a bunch of training this spring over the water, and it's a proper 2-liner, so it's similar, and it's pretty high aspect. I think the Climber 2 is 7.0, so it'd be kind of similar to the old Ice Peak 6 kind of thing. But I've never done any purposeful SIV on my X1 or my gliders before, my CCC gliders previous to that. I watched Cody do a ton of them on his Enzo 2, just a bunch of acro stalls, and they were just gorgeous. And, you're losing 15 feet tops, just nothing. And really nice. And so, I think it's a good, for me, it's always just been, I don't want to stretch this thing out. I just, this is my comp
I have the
glider.
same feeling, exactly.
I feel very confident that, I could do, I've done a lot of stalls, so I feel very confident that I could handle it, but it's when it comes time to it, I just think, yeah, I know that it's important. They used to really say, you just go out on your sea glider and do it and, save that for something else, but it's very different. I think it's important that we all do it.
Yeah, it for sure is. I mean, I have gotten one full frontal that went to kissing tips on the Enzo in Mexico, and that has been the only event where I have, stalled the glider out and just backfly, releasing out, and it was just the cleanest you can ever imagine.
Yeah.
And that was in, full-on thermic conditions in Mexico, and still like, oh, okay. No problems whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I think having a really good backfly is probably the key in that, just a really, just a second, boom. And then you're good. I think that works really nice to just have that confidence. That's what I learned in Ole Denny's, when I went out there for some acro training a bunch of years ago, and I was trying to be really aggressive because I was over the water and I just really wanted to utilize this 10 days. And I had, I can't remember, it was a friend of Jockey's on the radio with me, and I remember one day, yes. And I had the one day where I had done something too aggressively, and I was kind of was getting ready to go into a really bad cascade. And just as he was saying backfly back, right before that, boom, I did it. I was in backfly and I was ahead of him. And then I really, for me, it was just a massive confidence boost. Was just, okay, I recognized it and I went to where I'm supposed to be. It was just a non-issue.
Actually, he was the one solving this big ass cascade that I had.
Really?
Yes, because I was supposed to do a course with him starting the next day, but I was already on the radio, and as I was, plummeting through the air, and was kind of giving up because I had tried to stall it so many times, and I had kind of, not released it in the right timing or something, and then at the end, yeah, Johanna, I don't know if you're on the radio, but do it again. This time, just slightly slower, and you'll be fine.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what I'm amazed with is the SIV instructors. They see everything. I think it's really good training to go through what they do. Seeing the guys that were driving the boats, and just doing the towing. And I did a course with Dylan this spring out here in California, and he, I could see that those guys, they were kind of apprenticing basically, that they were really starting to get it, because I can stand on the shore and look up and I can identify what's going on, but I can't be ahead of the pilot in terms of telling them what to do. And these instructors that just do so much SIV, it must be really good for their own flying, because they're always they're a second ahead of the pilot.
That's quite amazing.
All the time. It's
Yeah.
really amazing. They see it as in real time. And I think whereas the pilot's always reacting, they can anticipate it. And it must be a great way to learn.
Yeah, I can imagine the same.
Flatlands. I want to talk to you about flatland training because you were in the epitome of the flatlands. I didn't realize Finland was so totally flat. I was just looking at the map here.
So you hit the terrain button and there was no change.
Exactly. It looks the same. Yeah. It just tilted up. But what can you tell us about? Are there some secrets? Are there some things that you fly differently when you're in the flats than in the mountains? Are you thinking about things differently?
Well, I mean, then again, the elevation difference, it exists, which means that the thermal will still be triggering off something. So that's maybe the thing that you have to start paying a lot more attention to the surrounding area. Like, okay, antennas are normally placed on a small height. So antennas should be trigger points, for example. And then you're checking the contrasts a lot. Imagining this cold-hot contrasts. Like if you have a swamp, for example, that is in front of then a thermal trigger, for example, and these types of things you're checking. And of course you have to, it helps if you are well known with the area, of course, but you can still fly great without knowing the area, I would say. Of course it is easier when you have clouds, like in any place. I mean, that is telling you exactly where to go.
Sure.
But also maybe think a bit further that if you have a small little river, then most of the surrounding area will be slightly more moist and most likely not be working as well, even though if it is this cold-hot contrast. So these types of small things.
So you won't follow a river, but you might hit it if it's perpendicular. Is that what if it's
pretty much you like the river valleys? I mean, it's not per se a valley here in Finland, but still, yeah, it's of course it can still trigger, but there is often a huge risk that it's slightly lower and moist and not working.
Okay. Tell me about when you said contrast, something that's I've always been slightly confused, or maybe more than slightly confused with, but when it comes to bodies of water, I've found climbs on the windward side and on the leeward side. And I never really know what to punch for, because the contrast is of course happening as soon as you get to the windward side, but does it take a while? Or where are you trying to kind of hover?
I would always go for some like kind of obvious, geometrical shape. Kind of a ball shape goes on to the lake and go off there. But then, of course, if you have a bit of wind, it will be drifting. So it may be the windward side of the lake, but you're already, quite on the opposite side of it by then. No, at least in my experience, we are normally leaving quite a bit distance, like on the lee side of a lake. Because that's normally not the end of the lake is normally not really working.
Okay.
So we're trying to avoid that area.
Interesting. Okay. Because in the Sertão, I had quite a few down in Brazil. I had quite a few saves. Just, it's windy, right? It's windy on the ground. And I had quite a few saves there just parking myself at the end of a lake. So then, if I didn't get something, I could just ditch. And, because I always found it kind of scary to do it at the windward side, because if you don't get something, you might not make it across the lake. But I would just park
you're
myself
having
quite
big lakes as well.
Yes. Good point. Okay.
Yeah. That might be the difference.
Yeah, it's hard for me to visualize that in terms of how it works. It's hard to understand. I see what you're saying. I mean, if you're at the leeward side at the end of the lake, all that air is just coming across all that cold. It doesn't have much to kick off. And yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But I guess depends on lake and place and all the other parameters that goes into it.
Yeah, sure. What's your process, Johanna, for planning you talked about your record. That was more your partner's thing. It sounded like you just, he bombed out
Tag
and
it along.
you made it happen. But yeah, but what do you take me through the process of planning, a big flight in Finland or anywhere, but when you were in the air to try to break the record the day that he did, take me through the process and go not just that day, but go back to, what weather resources, forecasting, mental side of things. How are you preparing?
Well, it's pretty straightforward, really. Checking windy, checking the wind on the ground. If it's launchable, preferably if you're supposed to go one way, quite rapidly increasing but landable wind. And then, of course, you're checking the thermal prognosis. And that's of course one of the benefits with Finland. I think it seems to be prognosis-wise quite predictable. So most of the times they are accurate, which is of course very nice.
Yeah.
So you're checking that, and then checking the airspace where it's possible to go. And if you're planning a route, we are normally using the is it Fly XE? It's called nowadays.
Yep.
XE
app.
Yeah.
So you're putting your task into that.
Yeah.
Are you able to pick up using SkySight or other forecasting models? Are you getting much convergence in Finland?
Actually, there is sometimes convergence lines quite close to the coast that we're getting.
Okay.
That does happen.
So you're getting some coming in, I would imagine, from the west.
Yeah, and
like
I've only, I think, hit it once, and I didn't realize that was it. So I got scared and landed. That was stupid. And I will never hear the end of it either.
Convergence is an elusive beast, though, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, okay, am I flying something that I should not be flying? What am I not seeing? Why is it going up? Is it overdeveloping? Can't see it. Like, yeah.
And one of the things that I don't know why this hit me with such a surprise, but it did, is often conversions can be quite rowdy. And I, at least here in the desert, when we get into a convergence line, it's pretty hands-on. And in my mind, I just don't see it like that. You have these two forces of air and they're coming together, and I see that would be kind of rough, but as it goes up, it should be nice.
It should be agreeing and nice.
Yeah. Like the convergence in Valle is, it's a little hands-on, but it tends to be pretty nice. But other convergences, especially in the Alps, I've been in convergences where you're just, whoa, oh my God, this is rowdy. It's interesting.
Yeah, I have to admit that I don't have enough experience to say anything about the convergence here. But at least what I did experience that one time, it was actually pretty nice and smooth.
Yeah, I think a sea breeze convergence can be pretty nice. When it's coming off the ocean. It's something I need to also work on quite a bit more. I think SkySight, because it's built by soaring pilots, by sailplane pilots. I think they're really tapping into that, and I understand it can be pretty reliably forecasted. So it might be worth looking into up there in Finland. That'd be a neat way to go.
Might be, yeah.
Tell me about Juni's record. How much more is on the table there? How extraordinary was that? Is he just way more to go? Is that?
I would say if you get that one magical day, because it's 500K, it was prefrontal, it was south to north, which is kind of unique. It's not happening often at all. But actually, he did launch rather late, so there's at least like 1.5 more hour of day to be spent for such a flight. So the question is, of course, okay, is the world record possible? Well, I mean, no one thought it would be possible to do 500.
Yeah, sure.
And that was possible. So, yeah.
Extraordinary.
And kind of the same, because first it's like the dream limit was 400. That got broken. And then 1.5, 2 weeks after 500 is like unheard of. Is it even possible?
Records are meant to be broken, aren't they?
Yeah. But of course you have the benefit of a very, very long day when you're flying south to north. because I mean you have the polar circle up there.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of sun at least.
And does your thermal window, in around the solstice, how long is the day? Well, when is it possible to get going and survive, and are you almost certainly going to be on the ground? Because you said he launched late.
Yeah, he did launch slightly on the late side. Of course, these are different days, but we have been launching maybe at earliest 9:30, something like that, like 9:30, and then have been flying until almost like 9 in the evening.
So a 12-hour day is...
But still. But yeah, I would say it's still like theoretically possible 12-hour day. Of course, it's not like Brazil that this will happen like every day for 1 week in a row.
Sure, yeah. It's really interesting because when I did the Alaska thing, I really expected the thermal day to be longer than it was. It was late.
Mm-hmm.
We could often fly quite late into the evening. It didn't get dark until midnight, 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., but it wouldn't start for a long time. And
But was it then slightly higher pressure?
How... I didn't have any access to anything the whole time I was up there. So who knows? I don't know. But it was really often we weren't really flying XC until, 2, which is solar noon up there, because the time change stuff. But yeah, that kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that, but that might've just, who knows? That could be all kinds of reasons. Snow, water, high pressure, tons of stuff.
Yeah, because I've noticed that, one of the things that they are complaining about in Sweden is that it does not work at all. Flying high pressure and stable days is just not working. Whereas here in Finland, and it was kind of the same in Norway, it was not really working there either. But here it's working, but it's just starting late, so you can still get a 5-hour flight starting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Huh! Wow!
With strong, nice thermals as well.
I can't wait to get up there and fly with you guys. It just sounds amazing.
Go and do some towing with us.
Yes, that's the other thing. We haven't done a lot. We don't do a lot of towing down here. Got a little taste of it in Texas, and some of it was terrifying. It's windy.
Yeah,
it's scary.
But that's of course one thing as well, because it's dry and hot and a bit scary down in Texas. I mean here. That's one of the nice things, that it's not like it would be scary to land in the middle of the day here.
Yes,
it's completely fine.
Nice.
I mean, we're not having these super rowdy thermals that it would ever be a scary thing to do.
I guess you just have to worry about mosquitoes. That's about it, huh? That's tolerable.
Pretty much. They are actually quite lethal here. They're big and...
I've heard. Yeah. They're just no fun, but you're not going to die. Hopefully.
No, exactly. It's going to be a cloud of mosquitoes, but you'll live. It's not like a grizzly will take you or something. I think you've seen worse.
Johanna, I want to be mindful of your time. I know it's getting really late there, and you have a little one. But one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. What skill? This is I put out all these questions online, and I have fun just dishing them out at all the guests. What skill or thing have you learned from life or any other sport that's helped you become a better pilot?
Oh, wow, that's a tricky one. Skill in life. It might be actually computational fluid dynamics simulations.
Whoa. Okay.
Because that's going both ways. It's something that I have learned a bit of as a profession, but which is of course corresponding to everything we are doing in paragliding.
Sure.
So it's kind of helping each other that in paragliding is on a big scale, and most of the times it's on a bit smaller scale on my computer, but still it's mainly working the same.
I like it. For some reason I have to say this, it's just going with the flow. Johanna, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and congratulations on the little one, and can't wait to see you enroll to NEO. That'll be a blast.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription. And it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.